Welcome to the Cinema Psycho Show, the madhouse for film freaks and film fans of all types. I'm your host, Brian Coddington, joined my fellow co-host and filmmaker, John Woolscroft.
What the hell were you thinking, Francis Ford Coppola?
Oh boy. Yeah, this is always a fun episode that we do. So 2 weeks ago we covered our year in review. It's kind of our yearly tradition of analyzing the entertainment industry, all the news stories and horribleness that goes along with it. And we took a little bit of a detour because we of course had to cover the substance, because why not? And now we're back to finish off 2024 properly by breaking down our best and worst films of 2024. John, are you excited?
I am. I saw, according to my list, I saw 100 films in 2024.
You're insane.
Films. Yep.
You're insane.
So it took a while. It took a while to categorize them. The worst list was actually much easier, but it took a while.
Yeah, the worst list is always much easier. It's always a thing to shit on a film than it is to be like, this is good, maybe not. I find it funny, like the way that John kind of views movies is the way that some people like count their books. Like my wife is an avid reader and I am not, and I know that's shame. But I like movies, so like that's kind of my deal. But she'll tell me at the end of the year, like, I read 90 books, and I'm like, damn, I read
It's
like
impressive.
half.
Well, she has Goodreads, right? That
she does have
probably helps
Goodreads.
her
I think
keep track of it.
she looks at your fiance's stuff, because I think they're friends on the Goodreads app.
I got the app, and then I listed just about every single book that I have read, and then I haven't touched it since.
Yeah, I have aspirational goals of eventually reading, or in my case, listening to an audiobook, because that's all I'm doing. But then I go back to, I can just watch a movie, and that's more fun.
Yeah.
Like I'm watching recently now, unrelated to any of this, and it's not on my shit list because I'm still finishing it up. But the cult classic, as we call it now, because everything's called classic, Subservience. You remember that one?
Mm-hmm.
The Megan Fox android fuck movie.
You had me at Megan Fox and fuck.
Yeah. So that's what I'm currently making my way through. But speaking of 2024 movies, so John, I have a list of top 10, and I have a list of, I think, 7 of terrible films that I actually saw. But I, unlike John, do not see every single movie because I think that's insane. So,
hey, I didn't see the Garfield movie.
Oh, I'm surprised that you didn't see the Garfield movie. So I only have 7 of my worst, but I have what I'm calling movies I didn't see but are probably shit. So that rounds out my top 10.
I'm very interested in that list, because if I've seen them, I'll let you know.
Yeah. So, John, do you want to kind of start with like just an overview before we get to our list of what was the movie landscape like this year? And the years past, when we've talked about years and kind of looked at them from a macro sense, and we look at the movies that came out that time, like 2023 especially, and 2022 were really big like horror years. Like they were really big on like the horror movies that came out. What's the story with 2024?
2024 was kind of a mixed bag, I would say, overall. I would say it was another good year if you're a horror fan. And I want to get in a cheap plug here. After this episode's been out for a while, I'll be going into excruciating detail on different types of film over on my YouTube channel, like top documentaries, top foreign films, top horror films of the year. So I have all that cataloged. We'll just be going over in general the best American films of the year. I decided for this episode to just only do American films, no documentaries, no foreign films on there for this list. But I'll go into more detail over at J-Dub's Video Nasties. But yeah, I would say this year is kind of a mixed bag. I don't know how much of that was because of this strikes from last year or what it was, but some good, some bad, and some disappointing.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think the strikes more or less played too big of a role in this year's films yet. I think I think 2025 is going to be when we start to see those issues, just because if we think about it, the strikes occurred what, 2023?
Mhm.
Yeah, so like during that time period would have been when they were in production, or at least in the writing stages of what's going to come out in 2025, 2026. So, I mean, for me, I look at it also as a mixed bag. I look at it as you're getting also a couple really good movies that were surprising to a degree. Like I have on here on one of my bests, and I'll give this one away. Transformers 1, really good animated film that I had no idea was going to be as good as it was. Like it has no right to be nearly as good as it is. Like I was at Podcast Movement when this movie had come out, and I just gotten off a panel with Black Magic Design, and one of the panelists was like, "Hey, do you want to catch an advanced screener of Transformer 1?" And I'm like, yeah, I don't need to see another Transformers movie. And I'm kicking myself because eventually, when we were at the Erie Horror Fest, I ended up, renting it and watching it, and I was like, damn, this is really good. So, it that was a surprising franchise film to kind of knock out of the park. But I will say that for me, 2024 is the first time in a long time that I saw two movies that made me want to go back in the theater again.
I know what those two are.
You already know what those are. Everyone who listens to this podcast already knows what those are. You'll find them out on my list. But like that's a rarity for me in a long time. Maybe the last one was Endgame. That might have been the last kind of one. It's like, yeah, it's a good one, but it wasn't one that I'm like, I immediately have to jump into the theater right now. It's the Endgame was close.
I remember going way back when I was 8 years old. I saw Jurassic Park 3 times in the theaters, and that wasn't even enough. I wanted to go again, but my parents.
Well,
were like,
yeah,
money.
that's what that's what I mean. Those movies, Jurassic Park, Batman Returns. Batman Returns is a big one for me. That those movies kind of stick with you, and they do the work of cutting you off from the outside world to take in what is actually happening on the screen. And very few movies nowadays can do that. And I really believe that is the strength of the filmmakers behind them. So yeah.
Agreed.
So do we want to light this candle, John?
Let's do it. Yeah,
all right. How about you?
We're about to take a big
first.
dump, so let's light that candle.
Let's take a big dump. So how do we want to do this? You want to go best to worst or worst to best?
Let's go worst to best. Yeah.
Okay. So John, how about you kick us off here? What's your worst films of 2024?
All right. Well, my top 11, because I always like to.
Of course you do. Top 11, you fucking asshole.
So there were two movies that I didn't include on this list because I thought that it was a little too. I had a strange issue with them, but the two movies are Deliverance and Smile 2. The reason that there was nothing technically wrong with the movies, they were well acted, the cinematography was fine. It was more the message that the movie conveyed that I couldn't put them on the worst movies of the year list because there wasn't anything technically wrong. But Deliverance was one of those movies that blamed like the devil for what actually is just abuse in the home. And I'm getting so sick of that shit where it's these people have mental illnesses, and to blame Satan for the abuse that people go through pisses me off to no end. And Smile 2, basically the message of that movie is that if you're suffering, nothing will ever be better, and then you'll die. So I'm like, that is a horrific message, especially if like teenagers are watching this, which a lot of teenagers love those kind of movies. So yeah, what a horrible fucking message. But again, I couldn't put them on the list. So,
Yeah, Deliverance, I saw that one, and I'm glad you reminded me of that one because that one I did put on my list just now because that
yeah,
one was really fucking bad.
yeah.
And it
Which
was
is
a
a shame.
thing.
It's a Pittsburgh movie too.
Well, yeah, it's a shame when a Pittsburgh movie that I'm sure I know for a fact that there are people that you and I both know who worked on that movie,
Yeah.
and I didn't care so much for the the mental health is now spooky ghost shit thing. I mean, I get it. I'm even though I am a believer in the paranormal, I don't buy a dime for this story. I think it is absolutely, just kind of using that as an excuse. What got me was the ending of the movie, where the ending of the movie is very much a Jesus saves you thing, and it's just done in the most unartful, ham-fisted way possible.
Yeah.
And we're supposed to, as the audience, expect that everything that this woman had done is just washed away. We're all good. Glenn Close cracked me up in it.
She was pretty good in it. Yeah. See, that's why I couldn't put it on the list.
Glenn Close. I mean, I know the Razzies just got announced today, or at least I think it was yesterday. But if that woman doesn't win a Razzie, I don't know what will.
which is a shame because I thought the performance was good. But yeah, I could see them absolutely shitting on her.
Yeah. It's funny. But Smile 2 I didn't see, so I don't know about that one.
You don't need to. But yeah, my number 11, and Brian and I have talked about this movie, and as I said, it's more baffling than anything. And I almost didn't want to put it on the list because I almost admire the brazenness of how this movie got made, to the point where I didn't think I could put it on my worst list, but I had to after thinking about it, and that is Megalopolis.
I mean, of course. Of course.
That's why it's at 11, because again, I so admire some 80-year-old man selling half of his fucking wine empire off to make the weirdest, bizarrest, almost upsetting movie you can sit through, and nobody telling him no. And for that, I almost love this movie. But yeah, it's just it's a fucking mess from reel one to the end credits.
Yeah, it was one that you and I, there's very rarely a time where John and I literally sit in the car on the way back from one of these screeners and we don't really have an opinion, or we don't really know what the hell to say. We do a podcast, not for a living because we don't get paid for anything, but we do a podcast weekly, and we've been doing it for 342 episodes. And usually we have something to say, but on the ride back from the Megalopolis screening, I distinctly remember, John, that we were just kind of like, what the fuck did we just watch? I'm kind of the same boat as you. Like, I can't hate this movie completely. Like, it's not Neil Breen, unless like Neil Breen was a wine baron and he sold half of his wine empire, as you say.
I wouldn't be surprised.
And funded a movie where he got all of his, he literally went through the Rolodex of who's who in Hollywood over the past 40 years and who can I get to be in my movie. So I'm going to get John Voight. What he's going to play? He's going to play a guy who makes a boner joke and then shoots Aubrey Plaza. Oh yeah, Aubrey Plaza's going to be in the movie. And she's going to play, the villainess, kinda. I'm gonna get Adam Driver. Why? Because it's Adam Driver. He can make some weird memes and just so many of these just weirdo, bizarre characters. And it almost feels like Francis Ford Coppola got a toy bin full of action figures. That we all know, right? Action figures we all know. And said, I'm going to play Roman Empire with these action figures.
See, I was going to use the analogy that he grabbed a big pot and put in everything that doesn't go together, like threw in some spaghetti, threw it, and then Starburst and chocolate syrup, crab meat, bouillon cubes, sprinkles, and it's just like these things don't go together. What are you doing, Francis?
Well, what my favorite part is, and this is something that no one who has seen Megalopolis will know about, is the 20-minute preamble that really is it's the icing on the cake, if you will. If you didn't have the 20-minute preamble,
well, Donald Trump is a fucking idiot. A little bit.
I mean, I agree with him. Donald Trump is a fucking idiot, but it's just so bizarre, and it sets the stage perfectly for this train wreck in slow motion that's gilded up. Like it's so weird and bizarre and bad, but it's also like you've got it's a bad film on a Hollywood level, and that's, I think, the best part about it. And also the worst. And that's why I've said over and over again, I'm going to keep saying this over and over again, this is going to be a midnight movie.
Yep.
This is going to be a movie that people are going to have drinking games to every time that Shia LaBeouf says something weird. Which, if you do that, you'll be dead from alcohol poisoning. I can see people running down the street saying, "Pick up my hat," because that was a thing from the movie. Pick up my hat, pick up my hat, pick up my hat. Like, so many weird moments in this movie that they will absolutely become memes, and they will absolutely become the thing of midnight films. This is the modern day version of Manos Hands of Fate.
Yeah, it's like when everybody who goes to the screenings of The Room throw the spoons when you see the pictures of spoons on there's going to be something with Megalopolis, to that.
It's just going to take time. I just keep telling people it's not going to be an overnight thing. This is going to be a 10 years thing. 10 years, people are going to be talking about fucking Megalopolis and how much of a shit film it is, and how it's going to be an awesomely bad film because it's built for that.
I that's the only way I would see it again, is in like a theater with a bunch of rowdy people.
Dude, the simple fact that Francis Ford Coppola has taken this movie off streaming just adds to the stew, as you say. Like, I didn't think you could make it any more weirder, but now you're saying, well, fine, if you don't like my grandiose vision that took 40 years to make, well, I'm taking my ball and going home. It's now made it 1,000 times more awesomely bad.
This is my toy. This is mine.
Yes. Yeah.
But stepping into the actual top 10 here, number 10, I know that I might get some hate on this one because I think the attempted humor in it is what people are drawn to, but I just found it unspeakably obnoxious, and that is Venom 3 or Venom the Last Dance or Last whatever.
I didn't see it.
It's just
I didn't see Venom 2. Okay.
Well, for those who are long listeners of the show, you'll remember that Venom 1 and 2 both made my top 10 worst list when they came out. So
they did.
Yeah.
They did. And also the fact that they've made 3 Venoms makes my mind hurt. I mean, they shouldn't have made 2.
In the 90s, Venom was really popular as like first a villain and then kind of an anti-hero. I could understand of any Sony Spider-Man character villain making a movie out of them being a hero. It would be Venom. I just don't know why they had to do it so badly.
Well, that's my point, is like, and I think ultimately, John, like, you and I are not the target audience for this movie. My stepsons loved all 3 Venom movies. Like, they've loved them. But I think it's because it's made for them. It's the same reason why, the Sonic movies are not made for us, even though it's based off of a character from our childhood, but they're clearly made for children.
You could say the same thing about like the first 3 Star Wars movies, but I think you can enjoy those at any age.
Well, Star Wars is holy ground. Let's be honest.
But number 9, and Brian, I think we weren't recording yet when we talked about this, but is Trap, the M. Night Shyamalan.
Okay, I didn't hate this movie, John. So here's the thing. Lauren and I watched Trap when it was, I think, on Max one night, and we were just like, what are we going to watch? And we just ended up choosing Trap because we're like, well, it's something. Let's watch this. And It wasn't until I read closely, I'm like, oh, this is a Shyamalan movie. Oh boy. So I was expecting a train wreck like a Shyamalan movie would give you. And instead, I got a pretty decent thriller. Is it good? Not really. Is it god awful to the nth degree, like a Megalopolis? No, I don't think it is. I think it's a forgettable popcorn movie that I can watch once and never watch again. But John, why do you hate it?
It's like the more you think about it, the more it'll make your brain hurt. Just how absurd the premise is, absurd everything that happens in it. Um, I remember seeing the trailer and I was like, this does seem intriguing, even though it's an M. Night Shyamalan movie. But of course, I think every time he comes out with a movie, I have that feeling like the cabin movie, the beach one where everybody ages, and then they ended up being terrible too. But just
Yeah, he's
the
good at marketing. He's not good at making movies.
the absurd premise of this movie, and then for Josh Hartnett to escape 57 different times, I'm surprised he didn't just shard out a key to handcuffs. Like, oh, I always save that up my butt. It's like that would make as much sense as anything else. But yeah, it's just the more you break it down, the more absurdly imbecilic the script is, in my opinion.
Well, let's be honest here. The ending of this movie is where the movie goes kind of off the rails. The whole setup with the pop star figures out who he is and has a hand. It's complete bullshit, and that's why I say, like, this is a forgettable popcorn movie that you can watch one time when you've got an evening where it's like, hey, I just want something where I don't have to think too hard, but give me just a little tiny bit of something, and then just never watch it again. That's what I kind of view. And honestly, for Shyamalan, that's like the low bar. Is if you're not making shit, make something that I can turn my brain off to, because I'm not expecting much from him. But what is interesting is that Shyamalan has kind of been doing a lot of the Nepo baby stuff with it, like his movies, like Trap. I think isn't his daughter isn't she like the pop star?
Yeah. Yep. And his other daughter is directing now the movie called The Watchers that came out
Oh,
in
okay.
2024, which wasn't good or bad. It just was. So
Yeah. So it's like, if you want mediocrity, watch
call the Shyamalan.
call the Shyamalans, because they'll give you a mediocre film you don't have to think too hard about. And if you do think too hard, then yes, just as John said, your head will hurt.
We did a whole episode on this one, so I don't know how much detail we really need to go into, but number 8 is The Crow.
Fuck yeah. Terrible film. Hate it.
Unnecessary, Like I
There-
don't see it as like out of respect for Brandon Lee. Like, I don't necessarily care anything about that, but if you're not going to make it even remotely as good as the original, why do you even bother in the first place?
It was a cash grab.
No.
It was 100% a cash grab on nostalgia, but it was a failed cash grab on nostalgia, because the movie not only was trying to approach those people who are fans of The Crow, but also shit on them. like this is the worst thing you could do for a nostalgia film. I don't know whose bright idea it was to do this. It's like, yeah, we only took like 15 years trying to make this movie, and let's just fumble it right out of the gate, right? Let's just make it known that we're going to say that we're trying to attract a younger audience, but please, the fans of the 94 original, please come to it, because we have to still make our nut.
Mhm.
But we're going to shit on the movie too. Like, we're going to shit on it.
Number 7, I saw it purely because I was told it was a terrible movie, and it didn't disappoint. That was Borderlands.
That one I did not see.
I so one thing that didn't piss me off about it was that I did not play any of the Borderland games. Like, I'm an avid gamer, if you will, but that one just passed me by. So I know a lot of people who loved that game hated the movie because it does zero justice to the game. But thankfully, that wasn't an issue for me. It was cliched, it was derivative, It was pointless and had some of the most bizarre casting I have ever seen in my life. So,
How so? Because I didn't see it.
Kate Blanchett, who is arguably one of the greatest living actors that we have, is playing a character who is supposed to be like in her early 20s. And which, Kate Blanchett for like the really complex, thoughtful roles and not try to make her an action hero in her 50s. And Jamie Lee Curtis is supposed to be playing a character like in her early 30s. But
Oh.
if you know the game, and it's just and there's like a little wisecracking robot from the game, but they have Jack Black in there, and I think they told Jack like literally fill any dead air with your stupid voice because he
Oh.
never shuts up the whole movie.
Oh. Oh. I might have this might, John, have to be a watch, but watch it with like you and Christine and like do a bad movie night.
I'm down.
That might be
I'll watch
the
it
only
again.
way that I could stomach watching it.
Yeah. Yeah, it's not great. Speaking of movies that I saw just because I heard that they were some of the worst movies ever, was Kraven.
I didn't see that one either. I have
Sony
no
just
desire.
keeps
I have
shitting.
no desire at all to see a movie, one that's from Sony's Spider-Verse bullshit, because just about every movie that they have worked on from the Spider-Verse has been worse than the other. Like, it started with the Mobius film. Well, actually, technically, it started with the Venom movies, right?
Yep.
And then it started. Then we got Mobius. Then we got Madam Web, and it just seems like each one they keep making is just more and more terrible. So, like, when we got to Kraven, I'm like, Aaron Taylor Johnson as Kraven the Hunter. No, I'm not interested. I have no desire. Why even make a movie about Kraven the Hunter? It makes no sense.
They have to go to the D tier list of Spider-Man
He is a tier 2
villains.
list.
Yeah. Because like everybody already knows like Green Goblin and Doc Ock and characters like that you can't really redeem. So it's like, oh, take characters that unless you're a big Spider-Man fan, you don't really know who they are. So we can just construe it that they're the anti-heroes. But
I'm surprised they aren't doing what like DC did with the Gotham, well, not Gotham series. It was the Pennyworth series, and do Aunt May the movie.
yeah. Remember when Aunt May was a secret agent many years ago? What? She was?
What? She was? Yeah, she worked for S.H.I.E.L.D. Well, we can't talk about S.H.I.E.L.D. because that's Marvel. Okay, she worked for a spy agency.
Yeah.
And the person who ran it had an eye patch. His name was Fick Nuri.
Sam Jackson was his name.
Sam Jackson. And Aunt May's got to be super hot. Like, super hot.
Yeah. Big giant milkers on Aunt May. Yeah. It's like,
geez.
Her nipples aren't hard anymore. Get the ice. So we can start shooting again.
Oh, God. Sydney Sweeney, can we use her? No, she was in Madam Web.
Yeah, but we're Sony. We don't care.
Yeah. Continuity doesn't matter.
Continuity be damned. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, fuck. That would be a good one.
I would say, if nothing else, Brian, watch online when the main villain turns into the Rhino.
Of course he does.
I was laughing so hard. It looks, not only does it look bad, but it also looks unrealistic. So like they failed twice because not only is it stupid looking, but it's also so clearly not in the space that's just created in a computer. And I'm like, this looks like 2007 special effects.
So did they actually, because again, I didn't see it. Did they put him in a mechanical suit like Paul Giamatti in The Amazing Spider-Man 2? Was it 2? Yeah, 2. Or did he actually like mutate into a rhino?
Mutated into a rhino. Yeah,
of course
he got
did.
some kind of operation that if he doesn't use this like fanny pack of medicine, like his skin hardens and he turns into a rhino.
Okay.
Yeah. Oh, and Russell Crowe being Russell Crowe, that almost made it worth it.
Okay. You should have led with that, John. You should have led with Russell Crowe needed a paycheck.
Russell Crowe, yeah, he plays Craven's dad.
Of
And it's
course he
like
does.
he picks like the kids up from school, like in a flashback. He goes, "Your mother's dead. You're probably upset, so I take you out to shoot animals." They go to the safari and start shooting like animals, and I'm
That's
like,
what you do when you have tragedy in your life is get a gun and shoot animals.
yeah, the Russell Crowe way. Yeah.
Yep.
Number 5, I don't recommend this on my worst enemy, was Tarot, which
I
is
didn't even see Tarot. That was one of is that one that's one of those Blumhouse movies, isn't it?
I believe it was Blumhouse. Yeah,
Yeah.
generic as you can get, you
Yeah.
know, and absurdly stupid and just there for graphic deaths. That's all it is. But not in
Mm.
a way that like Terrifier 3 had a charm about it. you know, um, just yeah, it's like eating stale Cheerios. Like you're still technically
Yeah.
eating, but yeah,
Yeah, you're just like there's no flavor or sustenance to it.
no. Number 4 was, and I, I don't know how anybody ever found this man funny, and I know some consider him the greatest stand-up comic of all time, but was Jerry Seinfeld's Unfrosted.
That movie I have not seen and I have no desire to see it because I think the premise is fucking stupid.
Yeah, it's kind of a takeoff on this new trend of movies that are about products like Air Jordan
Yeah.
sneakers, the
And the
movie Air.
Tetris movie
Yeah.
and the what was there the Hot Cheetos movie Flamin'.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah, so it's not even a good takeoff on that type of thing. It's just Jerry Seinfeld's horrible breakfast cereal jokes. Like I
Remember when I was funny?
yeah. Remember Seinfeld? You all love that show.
Well, here's the thing that no one understands about Seinfeld is that people watch Seinfeld for George, Elaine, and Kramer.
Yeah.
That was it. Like, no one watched it for Jerry. Okay? No one watched. Jerry was the straight man the whole time. And
Oh no.
what was Jerry's reaction to all these weirdo characters?
Oh no, Brian, they did watch it for Jerry. Jerry Stiller. Oh.
Oh. Yeah, but no, I didn't see it just because I think even the premise was not even based in reality. Like it wasn't even based off of anything real. It was like made up completely.
Yeah.
Like it wasn't even like
Oh, yeah.
I saw the Tetris movie and the Tetris movie was really good. I don't know if you saw that.
I did not. No.
It's actually really good. It's on Apple TV Plus, but that was one that is based on a true story, the true account of how Tetris kind of came to the United States and came to, be part of Nintendo and kind of shaped handheld gaming for the rest of us. But that was done kind of in a very serious sense, but also kind of rooted in reality where Unfrosted, I think is almost, you could call it a mockery of these types of movies.
Yeah, I mean, Snack, Crackle, and Pop are characters in the movie.
Of course they are. Of
Yeah.
course they are.
And it's just like, if this was a student film, I would say this was a nice try, but you might want to let somebody who's actually funny rewrite it. And
Yeah.
the Jerry Seinfeld, the Mr. Funniest man ever, I guess. I don't know.
No, he's not. He's he dated a teenager.
Yeah, he did. Yeah.
When he was 30 something.
Yeah, he likes them fresh. Yeah.
Gross. Gross.
Number 3, just to finish out my trifecta of shitting on Sony, Madam Web.
Oh, well, of course. Of course, Madam Web's on there. That movie was god awful as fuck. We did a whole episode on it, John.
Mm-hmm. Yep. I would say that if there's a difference between bad movies that are a slog to sit through and then some that are so bafflingly terrible that it's actually fucking funny as hell to sit through. So I would recommend Madam Web to somebody who loves bad movies because you'll laugh your ass off at the incompetence of this thing.
I don't know about that. It was, I mean, granted, John, like, you and I haven't sat and watched that one together, so it might be a different take nowadays. I know when I saw it by myself, it was painful to watch, and I was falling asleep through the whole thing because I was just like, this is so fucking boring. and then on top of that, the voice, the main bad guy's like voice being dubbed over, but done in a very bizarre way.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like that sort of thing. Just not even like an attempt at making it good. It's just like we're just gonna make it shitty because we're just gonna make it shitty. You know.
Yeah. Yeah. I don't. Bless their hearts over at Sony for trying to make a Spider-Man-less Spider-Man universe.
Just
but
don't try. Like that's the thing. You can't. It doesn't work. It just doesn't work. I think what happened is Sony looked at DC and said, "Oh, look, they made a Joker movie without Batman in it,
or a Harley Quinn movie,
or a Harley Quinn movie without Batman in it, or we did this. They did the Suicide Squad without Batman in it. See, we can do that. Can you though?
Yeah.
Nah,
Not so much. But number 2 here, Reagan.
I haven't seen that one, but I
Don't
imagine
don't
it's
do it.
garbage.
Yeah,
Well, I have no desire. I have zero desire to watch any biopic about Ronald Reagan. Zero.
Yeah. It's well, first off, everything they say is exaggerated or a lie. They
Of
make
course
him
it is.
they make him President Jesus, and even if you ignore that, like if you know nothing of history and you take everything at face value, it's still a bad fucking movie. It's just so bad.
So not only is it propaganda, but it's just shitly made.
Yep, that is a fair statement.
Yeah, it's shit propaganda. But yeah, I have no desire to watch it, and I know like Dennis Quaid is in it, and I think he didn't direct this, did he?
No, he was just acting in it.
He was just acting in it, but I know that he's taking a big stance of like, oh, I'm very much a pro Reagan person. It's like, okay,
Yeah, it's because you made the most of your money during this presidency.
yeah. I was gonna say no one was calling you after Inner Space.
And lastly, here I said on my best movies I wasn't going to include any documentaries, and this is technically a documentary on my worst movies of the year list, but it's really not because it'd actually have to be showing anything that's real and not just hate speech, and that is Am I Racist?
That's a real movie.
Yeah, it's from the guys over at the Daily Wire.
Oh, okay. Well, that's all you had to say.
Yeah.
That's all you had to say right there.
Yeah, it's those dipshits.
Those dipshits.
Just going around and manipulating footage and manipulating conversations to just facilitate their worldview and agenda of hate and racism and sexism and everything else you can imagine.
Gross. So we have, with Reagan, we have shitly made propaganda, and with that movie, we just have straight up propaganda that is shit.
Yeah, and and they're trying to be like the Republican Michael Moore, but it's like he is, he actually is funny and a clever filmmaker. You aren't. So yeah, quit trying to be like the Third Reich Michael Moore.
Well,
it's not.
Third Reich Michael Moore. That's the thing that I don't think people quite get is that Republicans aren't funny.
No. Yeah.
At all. Like, and that maybe at a time they were. But it's not funny now. And that's your fault. Okay. And so, like, quit trying. Why are you trying to be that? Just own your bullshit. Own that you're terrible.
Yeah. Well, yeah, because all of their quote unquote humor just comes from anger. And it's just like ends up being something.
And I'm sure that, I'm not going to get into a big, long political fucking thing because I'm tired already. But, I just quit. For as much as you hate liberals and Democrats, you really are trying to steal their comedy. You're trying hard. So it's like, why don't you stick to your country music and guns?
Yeah, you're good at that.
You're into that shit. Go ahead. Hey, yeah. By all means, have that shit. We don't want it. We'll stick to like comedy.
Yeah. So that is my top 11 turds of this year.
Top 11 turds. All
I
right,
want to give it. Actually, I do want to.
Oh, do you have honorary mentions?
Honorary mentions. Just one to Red One, the Dwayne Johnson Christmas vehicle. It was in my top 10, but ended up getting pushed out. But that does not mean it's any good.
I didn't see that one
either. It's a generic
either.
hunk of shit. So,
well, I mean, I'm kind of used to now. Oh man, that's now I can add that. There's one that I now to add to my hunk of shit library. But yeah, I've noticed that the holidays really do unleash the worst fucking movies out there. Like in terms of when they're themed around a holiday, the good ones kind of come out, I've noticed, in like July, just in time for the holidays, when they go to like, home video, or at least, July, August, sometimes September. And then the really bad ones, they always get released right around Thanksgiving. First week in December, second week in December, not Christmas. Christmas is reserved for good movies. But that gap of time between Thanksgiving and 2 weeks, like a week before Christmas, and it's coming out, it's going to be shit. Plus, I think Red One went direct to digital. I don't even think it went in theaters.
No, it did initially go into theaters.
It did.
And here's the thing. It bombed, but there was nothing else out at the time that it was still the #1 movie in America, even though
so they could claim that they're the #1 movie in America.
Yeah. I did not go to the theater to see this. It became available on streaming, and that's where
that one went to streaming fast too.
Yeah. Very, very fast. Well, they had to pay like Dwayne Johnson an island to be in it. Here's an island, Mr. Johnson.
Did you really have to pay him? Because I mean, the man did Black Adam, and that was shit.
He still somehow, is pulling in like $30 million paychecks.
I don't know how the hell he does that.
The star power is faded, but he's still
The Rock.
Yeah,
Dwayne the Rock Johnson. Okay,
Dwayne.
So let me get to my list here. So first off, I'm gonna go with movies that I didn't see but are probably shit. Okay. So I have down here Borderlands, Unfrosted, and Reagan. Those three I didn't see, but I know they're shit.
Oh yeah, they are. For somebody who was just named them all on his list. Yep.
Well, yeah, I was gonna say they ended up on yours, so that's there. Okay. So I got a couple that are on mine that are not on yours. Okay. The first one, and these are in no specific order. I don't have like this is the worst one of all. But at the bottom of my list, I have Twisters.
You told me it was fucking terrible.
That movie was a waste of fucking time. And it didn't necessarily make me angry, but like Lauren and I looked at it and we were just like, okay, let's watch this because it's, the sequel to Twister. And like any 90s kid, you were a fan of Twister, like for the most part. John, were you a fan of Twister?
Yeah, I mean, sure.
Yeah, just about everyone was.
Yeah.
It's like, it's 1996. And I think, they came out in 96.
Yeah, it was one of the big three that year with Mission Impossible and Independence Day.
Yeah. So it came out in 96 and Helen Hunt and, about giant tornadoes and chase tornadoes. What's not to love? But this movie just got terrible. Like it had this bait and switch thing in it that I didn't really care for, where the whole time you're thinking that the main character is really Helen Hunt's daughter because they specifically don't tell you her last name. And then it's revealed that she's basically a nobody. And it's not even tangentially related to the original. This was kind of more or less like kind of similar to The Crow, if you will, or even Gladiator 2, although I like Gladiator 2. Just kind of making a legacy sequel for the sake of making a legacy sequel and cash grabbing. No one really was like, do we have to make this? Like, it's not adding anything to the universe. of this original film. It's just kind of it's there, and it's very formulaic. Yeah, I didn't really care for it.
So they basically the studio just grabbed a binder of all their previous
Yeah.
projects and went, "Hey, we haven't made a second
Yes.
Twister." Yeah.
Yes, that is exactly what this movie was. I did not like it at all. When it showed up on Peacock, I was like, "Oh, that was kind of fast for it to show up on Peacock." But it's like, "Oh, I watched it." Well, that's why. But like, yeah, Lauren and I were like, "This is not good at all." And we got, I don't know if you and your fiance do this, where you watch a movie and you get like halfway through it and you're just like, "This isn't very good," but we're too far deep in to pull out now.
Oh yeah.
So it's like we could just click away, but we've committed to halfway through.
It's
So
only
like,
got 45 more
yeah,
minutes.
yeah. So that was one that was really terrible. All right. Next up on my list is Hot Frosty.
Yeah, that you know what though?
Yeah.
It made me very happy to listen to you discuss that and on our bonus episode and me just sitting here going, "What the fuck are you guys talking about?"
I'm telling you, that movie was fucking shit. It was it's like if the Hallmark channel decided to make something slightly more risque around the holidays. Like that's what it is. Slightly. Like, let's make it PG-13. And like it made me feel really uncomfortable, the fact that everyone was oogling and ogling the Hot Frosty character. And on top of that, like the simple fact that everyone in the fucking town is just cool with the fact that he's a snowman who came alive.
Sentient snowman, yeah, that's perfectly normal. I mean,
But no one questions it.
my
No one questions
hometown,
it.
you got those all the time. Yeah.
Yeah, no one questions it. It's just like, well, yes, of course he's a sentient snowman. What's the problem with that? And you have some good actors in this that are also just terrible. Like Lauren Holly plays basically a sex crazed gilf who just wants a piece of Hot Frosty.
I do love seeing like where certain actresses go to die out with the Hallmark channel, you know.
Yeah. But it's just, I did a whole bonus episode on it. Go watch it. It's terrible. But it was really bad. Really bad. Next up on my list here, I have Ghostbusters Frozen Empire.
That was initially on my list, but over time it kept getting knocked down the list and out of the top 11. But
this one I was more or less disappointed. And it wasn't necessarily like it's a bad movie. It's just when you've got the legacy sequel that came before it, which I'm blanking on the name because it's 11:13 at night when we're recording this. But that one was actually fairly decent. And the follow-up to it just felt to me like we're out of ideas and we don't know what to do. So like they clearly have access to the classic Ghostbusters. Good job. Good. I'm glad you did that. But you put them in a story that feels like it fit more with the real Ghostbusters, the animated TV show from the 80s. And instead what we get is that. And not even like, it being good like in Ghostbusters 2, but just kind of meh.
oh, and it's Ghostbusters Afterlife.
Yes, Ghostbusters Afterlife. Yeah, I was disappointed by it. I was like, oh, okay. Yeah. So, next up on my list, I have Rebel Moon Part 2.
So I don't know how I've avoided this. I guess we call it a franchise after only 2 of them? I think he wants it to be a franchise.
They're gonna make a third one.
Yeah, okay. So yeah, this franchise, even though I probably should be watching them for my worst movies of the year list because everybody and their mother has told me just how awful these Zack Snyder turds are.
I let's just put it this way. It's so forgettable that I don't even remember half of the plot. And like something about the Scar Giver, and she was like, part of an imperial family, and she escaped because they were killing the king and I don't know. It's like someone took Star Wars and said, how can we make it dumb? How can we make it dumb?
Wait, so you're saying
And
George Lucas is writing these?
yeah, it's like, how can we make it dumb, and how can we like take all of the good things that were part of Star Wars and pull it out? And what do you get? You get this shell. And that's what I call this. This is a shell of Star Wars. All the heart, all the good things taken out, replaced by Zack Snyder isms.
It's a lot of slow-mo.
Yeah, a lot of slow-mo, a lot of set pieces, a lot of action, that sort of shit. But light on substance. And I'll give it an A for world building. They do a lot of that. Good job. Zach's always been good at that sort of thing, building worlds. But when you're building worlds and it's a crap story, it doesn't matter how good the world is. You know? All right. Next up on my list is Joker Folie à Deux.
You know,
Did it grow on you?
I didn't even mind it actually when it came out. For everybody talking about this is the worst movie of the year, this might be the worst movie of the decade. Like, I didn't like it, but I did not hate it. It's not in my top 20 worst movies of the year. Probably not in my top 25. Like, it's just a miss, but it's not the disaster, in my opinion, that everybody else makes it out to be.
Yeah, I really did not like it at all. I think what got it for me was just that they had built up a lot from the first movie and really had built up expectations from the first movie that they just decided, yeah, no, we're going to go in a completely different direction and not deliver on those. I think that's the problem with a lot of these franchise films, especially rooted in comic books, is that you knock it out of the park with the first one, right? You do a killer job. Everyone loves it. They're comparing it to, Scorsese's films and things like that. But then you just decide, hey, yeah, for the sequel follow-up, what do we do from there? Like, I think they should have just stayed away from a sequel. Like, just don't do it. Like, let this exist on its own. But, money is money, and, DC wanted another movie. And so to lure them back, Joaquin Phoenix says, well, I'll do it, but only if it's a musical. And I mean, if that's the case, I'd be like, well, then we're not doing a sequel. And I'll recast your ass. But I just think it was a massive, massive mistake that, I wonder what would have happened if they just kind of kept the train going that left off with the first movie. If they kept that vibe, if they kept it similar to that, instead of going into this weird, bizarro, like musical number shit that really didn't add up, and using Lady Gaga in the most not really useful way. Like, you've got Lady Gaga in your movie and you're making her sound like garbage. Like, those things just, they didn't work for me. I don't think it's the worst film of the year, but it's definitely fucking bad. Like, it's not good. And honestly, I have no desire to watch it again.
Yeah, I could go my whole life without watching an emaciated Joaquin Phoenix pound town Lady Gaga. That was weird.
Yeah, it's strange. It's really strange. Next up on my list, I of course have Madame Web. What's there to say? It's a bad movie.
Sadly, you could say everything because there's so many things that's bad with it.
We did a whole episode on Madame Web. Go look in our back catalog. It's a good time, but there's not. I mean, what else to say? We talked about it to death.
It's a superhero movie with no superheroes in it.
There's no superheroes in it. They become superheroes right at the very end, and then the movie cuts to black.
Yeah,
yeah. Yeah, it's something. All right. Next up, I have The Crow. No surprise there. I also had a back catalog episode there about The Crow that we did at the Area Horror Fest. I hated this movie. I watch this film. And because I've already said this, the original 1994 Crow is a classic, and this movie took 15 years to be made because people knew that making this movie was going to unleash hell, and they didn't care. They saw dollar signs. They thought that they could get away by getting, Bill Skarsgård to dress up like Brandon Lee, and get FK Twigs to be something, because she was supposed to be Shelley, but just kind of weird in the whole movie, and just a lot of bizarre, strange things in this film. Danny Houston being one of them, and his weird, bizarre, like, soul-sucking powers. I don't know. There's a lot. It's a lot to the fucking Crow that makes it terrible. But yeah, we did a whole episode on it.
A movie kind of unites people, sometimes when they're good, but in this case, when they're bad. When we were at the Erie Horror Fest, we recorded this episode, and we had a vendor kind of almost right across from us, like
It was catty corner to us.
catty corner, yeah. And he just came over and just started talking to us once the episode was done. Just like, he's like, "Oh yeah, I hated that too," and like we just ended up.
He was like, "Fucking A, man." I'm like, "Damn right, man." Yeah. Yeah. This is how we become friends. All right. Next up on my list is a movie that holds a lot of meaning to John and I because it was our very first advanced screener, and that was the remake to Mean Girls.
Yep, that almost made my top
I
list.
figured it's such a movie that didn't need to be made. Like, there was no reason to make that movie.
It's, I'm okay if you want to make a musical off a popular movie, but then you don't need to make a movie of the musical. It's just leave it on the stage. It's a different medium. It's a different presentation, and just leave that be and respect that. But Tina Fey needed a big payday, so I guess we got the movie.
Yeah, and I get that they were saying, hey, yeah, we're not trying to replace the original. We're trying to update it, and we're also trying to basically add a lot of the musical side to it. Okay, that's fine. And don't be wrong, there were portions of this movie that I liked. We did a whole episode on it. It was our first advanced screener, which was really cool. And like, I didn't hate it completely, but it was just such an unnecessary movie. Like, the Mean Girls is not even that old. Like, we're talking maybe 20 years old. So
Yeah.
It's not even that crazy old to think like, oh yes, this movie was dying to be remade. It wasn't. It was just, and as you said, John, like, the musical exists as a musical. You don't have to turn that into a movie, There's a reason why Cats the musical is really good and Cats the musical movie is garbage.
I mean, hey, it gave some people knowledge that they have weird sexual fetishes about Taylor Swift as a cat.
That's true. It's very true that they looked at their cats and said, if I put Taylor's face on them,
I'd have sex with my cat.
Gross. Super nasty. And of course, my top shit film of 2024. I've already talked about it. Megalopolis. I
couldn't do it. I couldn't put it
I had to.
past 11.
had to.
I couldn't do it.
It's just, John, it is the sheer fact of how many A+ actors in this movie. Like top tier guys. It's not even like that you got all the B-listers. He's got top tier motherfuckers in this movie. Filmed it in a volume. Like the same thing The Mandalorian used. And he made this B movie on an epic grandeur. Like an epic grand scale. Like, that's the thing that I can't get. It's like you literally shit out a golden turd. That's what Megalopolis is. It's a golden turd. It's not just a turd. Like, Neil Breen could only wish that he could make a B movie the level of Megalopolis, but it took Hollywood royalty to make a terrible film of Hollywood royalty status. Like, that's why I'm like, this is the one. And then like, you couple it with the fact that he literally pulled the movie from all the streaming because of how terrible it was and how it was being received. And I'm like, this is brilliant. This is brilliant. I look forward to in 20 years time. I know it's going to be the case. I look forward to seeing, kind of like with The Room, a movie about the making of Megalopolis. Because you know it's coming, right? You know that's going to be the coming.
I would think so. Yeah, we got Ed Wood, we got, the disaster artist, and now we'll get Megaflopolis or whatever they're gonna call it.
Flopodopolis.
Yeah.
All right. So that's our shit films. And it took us an hour to get through that. John, let's talk about the best movies of 2024.
All right. Starting here for me at number 11 is Heretic.
Didn't see it.
It's I mean, if you have some issues with religion, I think you'll enjoy it. The royal you. Hugh Grant is probably the best performance I've ever seen him give. He's actually acting in this one instead of just being Hugh Grant. And yeah, it's about some Mormon missionaries going door to door trying to convert people to the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, and they end up in a trapped house with Hugh Grant, who is just dispelling everything about not just their faith but faith in general. And for a movie that is predominantly talking, it is amazing how much the suspense and the fear continues to promulgate through the whole movie.
That sounds awesome. I got to see it. Is it on streaming yet?
It's last time I saw it, it was still at the $20 level, but it might have dropped down to like 5 or something now.
I have to check that one out.
Yeah. Number 10 for me was The Substance.
I mean, of course.
Yeah. We just
that
talked
was such a good movie.
Yeah, we just talked about this last week. Brian and I both appreciated the brazenness of this, the tongue in cheek, the commentary. And again, something that is so wonderful that we got a female director and a European director with completely different sensibilities than, the average American male director that I think, really took that movie to the next level.
Yeah, definitely a good one.
Number 9 was Conclave.
I didn't see that one either. I've seen it on streaming. I have yet to watch it just because it's a religious one. I'm like, I'm not really into that.
Yeah, I didn't think a movie about picking a new pope would be so thrilling and fascinating, but it really is about kind of the dark side of the Catholic Church. Like, I imagine that
there's a lot of dark sides of the Catholic Church.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I should say some of the light sides because there's so few of them. But yeah, I imagine this probably piss off a lot of more zealot religious type people out there, because people are like, oh, how could you have liked Heretic and Conclave? I'm like, they're actually more similar than they are different, because this movie is not very nice to Catholicism. For number 8, these type of movies can kind of be hit or miss. The biographical movies, especially about rock stars. But thankfully, this one was much more a hit than a miss, and that it was A Complete Unknown, the Bob Dylan movie.
I didn't see that one. It looked really good. Like, it looked like a one that I would like. But, like with the movie Ray and Walk Hard?
That's the Dewey Cox story.
Dewey Cox story.
The mockery of Walk the Line.
The mockery of Walk the Line. Like, with those, Walk Hard, it's good too. Okay.
It's really good. Yeah.
But like with those, I never saw them when they came out in theaters. I always caught them on HBO. So that's one that I know I've kind of earmarked as I probably should see that one because it looks interesting. The only thing I heard about that one was that people were finding it funny that Bob Dylan was an asshole.
Yeah, I don't know how they didn't know that.
Did they not know?
That's, I love Bob Dylan. He's one of my favorite musicians of all time, but he is notoriously a dick.
Yeah.
if you know anything about him, and this movie doesn't shy away from that. One thing I think it also did well was that it only focused on the era where Dylan moves to electric for the first time. Pisses so many people off for that. It didn't try to cover his entire life up to this point or anything. Timothy Chalamet wasn't in old man makeup pretending, to be old man Dylan, thankfully.
That would have been funny if they did that.
Yeah. Number 7 here is Sing Sing.
I didn't see that one either. I'm
It's
terrible.
it's a fascinating movie about like how the arts can be so restorative to inmates. It takes place at Sing Sing prison about inmates putting on theatrical productions. And
Okay.
yeah,
Neat.
it's a great story, great characters. Um I think it's going to get ignored by everybody come award season, left and right, but that's a damn shame. It's very good.
Sing Sing is not sexy enough for award season.
No, no. Number 6, A Real Pain.
I didn't see that one either. I'm terrible. These are all ones that see when John doesn't have children. So
The movies are my children.
the movies are your children. You
Right
have
this way,
time.
kiddies.
You have time now. Like you have time. You can see all these movies. I didn't see that one. So what's that one about?
So Jesse Eisenberg wrote and directed this, and is one of the stars of it. It's about two cousins getting back together after the loss of a family member, um, and they go through Europe to kind of retrace their Jewish roots, and yeah, it's the whole thing is very much a character study of these two characters. Kieran Culkin is I think I said the right one. Fuller on Home Alone. Um,
Yeah,
but
that's the right one.
yeah, he's plays the other cousin to Jesse Eisenberg, and he is fucking fantastic. And yeah, he's being lauded, this time of year for his performance there. And yeah, uh, great performances all around. I don't always like Jesse Eisenberg, but he's fantastic in this one. Culkin's fantastic in it. Yeah, and just a great exploration of sadness and how two people that were so close when they were younger totally took different paths, and
Mm.
what that says about their relationship.
Interesting. Is that the one that he won the Golden Globe for?
Yep. Yep.
Oh, okay.
And,
Gotcha.
and then he went to Monday Night Raw the next day. God bless
I
him.
saw that. I saw that. I don't pay attention to wrestling, but I did see that one popped up as a funny little clip.
Let's see. My counting is all wrong here, but next up is September 5.
I didn't see that one either.
Eh, It's
Yeah, I'm terrible. People are gonna listen to this and be like, "Man, that Brian really is ignorant of all the movies that are coming out." There's a lot of movies, folks. Okay,
Yeah.
but please, John, regale me with what September 5 is.
it's about the firsthand of the news journalist or sports journalist dealing with the terrorist attack at the Munich Olympics.
Oh, so it's a like heartwarming film.
Exactly. Yeah. No, it's a very tense thriller. It's all very clustered or clustered. Sorry, I
It's a
think
clusterfuck, but it's
I combined two words there. Yeah. But a very small, like intimate setting. Like I imagine it would make a very good play, but it never once, feels like it drags. And a lot of people don't know this was the only journalists at the Munich Olympics were sports journalists. And so you have all these people who work predominantly in sports talking about, this massive global, tragedy of a terrorist attack there and refusing to give up, the story because they're the only ones that are there on the ground being able to report on this firsthand.
That's crazy. Just yes, and I mean, it sounds like a pretty harrowing film, but yeah, just the you're a sports journalist, you're used to a certain type of journalism that you have to do, and now you have to turn into I don't want to say a real news person, but just like take just turn that sports brain off and just go to like, hey, we're trying to get this information out to people to save their lives.
Yeah. And it was the good thing for them is they had Peter Jennings, who was just there to cover the Olympics, but is a legitimate news anchor. He was the I think ABC news anchor for head news anchor for years, but they had him on site to kind of help out these sports guys tell this story. And the actor they got to play Peter Jennings, man, he sounds exactly like him. It's kind of eerie.
Cool.
Number 3 here is Honora.
Now that is one that I have heard a lot about. and I definitely want to see it, but I have not seen it yet. But it looks really good.
It's I don't know how a movie can be so tragic and so funny at the same time. Um, but yeah, it hits all markers. A fascinating story to even approach this because it's about a stripper who ends up in a fuck buddy relationship with a Russian trust fund baby, and
Oligarch. We can say what it is. It's Russian
yeah,
oligarch.
yeah, and he convinces her to marry him so he can stay in the country, but that causes like all of his billionaire father's like goons to come and like try to force this relationship to end immediately.
Hmm.
And like I said, it's tragic, it's dramatic, but it's also very, very funny at the same time. So
It's interesting how they're able to blend those two. As
yeah.
I said, I haven't seen it yet, but it's definitely one on my list that I definitely want to watch.
Number two, Nosferatu.
Fuck yeah.
Yeah.
Fuck yeah.
No notes.
No notes. We did a whole episode on it. Fucking amazing. Oh, so good.
Yeah, what else to say really? And number one, The Brutalist.
That is one I have not seen yet either.
Well, for us here in Pittsburgh, they've only done one screening. It was at Lowe's in the waterfront. And it was like,
Didn't they do AI with that one? Didn't they include some elements? I think I read that there was some
God, I hope
elements
not,
of
but
AI
maybe.
that were in there.
But yeah, it had that classic roadshow movie vibe. It had like an overture. There was an intermission in it. So yeah, just a fascinating tale of what it is to be a genius immigrant in this country who still has to bow down to the ruling class in this country who are essentially feckless morons, but rich, you know.
Kind of speaks to our time.
Yeah, a little bit. Yeah.
Speaks a little bit to our time. Great list there. A lot of movies that I have not seen, but will have to see. All right. My list is not nearly as intensive as John's is. It never seems to be that way. I seem to always be the one who puts like movies that I'm like, yeah, these are ones that are popular-ish. But okay, so bottom of my list, I have Night Bitch. John, did you see Night Bitch?
No, I've heard mixed things about it. I didn't end up because it kind of came out towards the end of the year, if I remember. Yep. So I didn't get to it, but I know the premise. It seems interesting.
It's based off of a novel, and I saw this like advertised because it was one that we watched during that malaise of after Christmas.
Mm-hmm.
But right
you
before
don't know
New
what
Year's.
day it is.
Yeah, you're on airport time.
Yeah.
Time doesn't exist. And it was like we're looking for something to watch. I'm like, Amy Adams is a werewolf creature? That might be cool. And it was actually pretty good. I was entertained by it. The story, I think, is really, really relevant and speaks to a little bit of like the dynamics that families go through in just raising kids. And I can relate to a lot of it, and I know my wife can relate to a ton of it. But it was pretty good. I was surprised by it. Yeah, great film if you get a chance to see it. And it's on streaming, so you can definitely watch it now. But yeah, Night Bitch. All right, next one on my list, and I'm surprised this one didn't make it to your list, was Wolverine and Deadpool.
I have to kind of gauge like, okay, what were the best movies of the year as compared to what was the most entertained I was this year. And I will say, I think I probably had the best time at the movies with Deadpool and Wolverine, but I don't know if I could say it was one of the top 10 best movies of the year, in my opinion.
I say it was one of the top 10 best movies of the year because it gave Marvel its balls back. Like that's what that movie did. That movie had one job. Okay. The job was erase the stink of the past couple Marvel movies in one go. Can you do it? And it did.
And also for it, to allow them to have Deadpool kind of mock them. Like, I didn't think Disney and Marvel had it in them. When he's like, welcome to the Marvel Cinematic Universe. You're coming in at a bad time.
I figured that they would kind of get scared and be like, well, listen, Ryan Reynolds, I know that you've done Deadpool at Fox, but now you got to be Disney-fied. And that wasn't it at all. If anything, they went worse. Let's look at here. Defiling of a corpse and all manner of dick, fart, and vagina jokes. I think it was worse than what Fox had. Like, I'm pretty sure it was worse. But hey, it introduced mutants to us. It added in a little bit of multiverse bullshit, but not to the point where it's like annoying. Like the whole, Ant-Man Quantumania was kind of annoying when it came to the multiverse shit. And, Doctor Strange was okay, but that was also like, I look at it as like, that doesn't count. It's a Sam Raimi movie. But yeah, I thought that it was a fresh, like, hey, resurface of the Marvel MCU. Did its job.
Well, we'll see how Captain America 4
New World Order.
Yeah, on
is that what it is?
Day. Yeah, I heard test screenings have not been great, so we'll see.
Well, let's be honest here, John. You and I both know that the good movies don't come out on February anything. Like,
yeah,
that's dead time. January, February, up until March 15th, it's pretty much dead.
We're all afraid to go outside and die of exposure.
At least in Pittsburgh right now, we're afraid to go out and die of exposure. It's like -4 degrees outside.
Yeah, I hope my students show up to class tomorrow. We'll see.
They ain't coming. They ain't coming. All right. Next up on my list, I have a surprise, and that was Transformers 1. That we already mentioned a little bit. That one was a surprise to me because I thought it was going to be another Transformers movie and it was going to be shit. But I was surprised.
See, I was surprised to hear you say that now, because when it comes to Brian and I are 80s babies who grew up in the 90s, but
yes,
one thing that people need to understand is that after their initial run, a lot of the cartoons like got re-aired through our childhood too. So like G.I. Joe, He-Man, Ninja Turtles, and Transformers being the, I was like a G.I. Joe guy. I loved the Ninja Turtles more than life itself, but I never really got into Transformers. So
they were past our time, John. Like you and I, we were way past the He-Man and Transformers craze for the most part. Unless we got picked up somewhere with one of like the offshoot series, like Beast Wars, I know was something that I watched all the time. Which is also a Transformers property, but we never were like gigantic Transformers fans. I think people born in 1985 and after were like, you kind of missed the boat on He-Man, Masters of the Universe, Transformers, and like GoBots and that sort of shit. Yeah. But Turtles, that was the shit right there.
Yeah,
Turtles was the shit. No, that was the first fandom. Let's be honest here. Yeah, if you were born in 1985 or late 80s, your first fandom, the first thing you obsessed over was motherfucking Ninja Turtles.
Yeah, I was 5 years old when that movie came out, and it was like, to me, it was the greatest thing since well, Batman actually.
Well, that's the thing. Yeah. That's the thing. Is Turtles ends up being your first fandom, but then you move on to what becomes your core fandom, which for John and I is, of course, The Dark Knight.
Yeah. Yep. For me, I saw like a lot of these things in syndication because they're like, well, we got them, let's just re-air them, even though it's past their prime. So yeah, I was like, I think He-Man might have even wrapped up by the time I was like 2 or 3, but I saw all the reruns in syndication. So
yeah, same here. Like I was aware of them, but like I think in terms of like the craze of He-Man and the Masters of the Universe and Transformers, we were way past that. But yeah, Transformers 1 was surprising just because it's an animated film that took itself seriously. And I think that was something that even the live action Transformers movies haven't taken themselves seriously in a long time. So that was refreshing to see. But let's see, what else do I got on my list here? Oh, this one was a surprise one to me. So I have down here after Transformers 1, I have Love Lies Bleeding.
Very, very good movie.
Yeah. This was one of those weird ones that came out during January in February, if I remember correctly. Like, it was one that came out during that time where I'm like, no good movie comes out. But this one was a squeaker in that it's almost like if you said, okay, I need you to make an RIP to David Lynch, but you need to make a David Lynch movie about bodybuilders in the 90s and go ahead, have at it.
It's like make Thelma and Louise, but actually have them be lesbians,
Have them be lesbians and have them be bodybuilders and have Ed Harris be some cringy, like gun rudder cocaine guy.
Creepy ass performance.
Creepy fucker. And oh yes, throw in a giant, Amazon woman too.
Yeah. It's, there's a term like neo-noir for modern day noir. Like, I think we need neo-western, because I feel like this and like Breaking Bad was, for television, like these are neo-westerns in my opinion. I think that this is, you could describe it that way as much as anything.
I call it more neo-noir than neo-western. That's what I'd go with. I think it shares a lot of the neo-noir feel to it. Like, and that's why I say like again, R.I.P. to David Lynch. That one hit a hard note when his passing. But he was kind of a master of combining these neo-noir aspects into his films. And like when I was watching Love Lies Bleeding the first time, like this feels very much like a Lynchian film, because he would, put in aspects of violence and, gangster shit. Like I'm looking at Blue Velvet. I'm like, this kind of rings a little bit close to that. But yeah, no, I loved Love Lies Bleeding. It was a great film.
I don't need a giant woman.
Yeah, don't watch it around children at all. But definitely a good one.
So she can step on my cubes.
Oh, shit. All right, next up on my list, and this is one that might be controversial, but for me, it hit home in the feels, and that was Beetlejuice.
Yeah. I wondered if you, but yeah, it was. I got.
It hit the feels, man.
Yeah, I got the nostalgia serotonin. It hit in my brain.
I don't care. I don't care. It hit me right straight in the feels. And I know exactly what people are going to say. They're like, well, Brian, you've shit on nostalgia bait before. And yes, I have. But I'm also going to be one person who will tell you that I'm absolutely a hypocrite. And I don't care.
We all are to some degree. Yeah.
Beetlejuice is one of those movies that holds a special place in my heart. It was the follow-up to me watching Batman. So like I watched Batman first. I was like, holy shit, what is this? And then somehow along the way, I found Beetlejuice and watched that. And I'm like, wait a minute, this is the same director? This is the same person?
Yeah.
And that was kind of what opened my eyes to Tim Burton and his madness. And I was like, I'm here for it. Like that's the thing. So like when I heard they were making a sequel to Beetlejuice, I'm like, how good can it be? We're what? 30 some odd years removed from it. How good is it going to be? And I mean, for a legacy sequel that brings back nearly all of the characters, I said nearly, not all of them. Looking at you, Jeffrey Jones and Alec Baldwin and Gina Davis, brings back nearly all of them. It does a pretty okay job with representing what happens after the original. Like, and that's why I say like a good movie that's kind of in this whole franchise, it has to build off of what came before and introduce new things. I love the fact that they went full blown into the Beetlejuice cartoon series because that's what I watched as a kid. So like, I'm all here for it. Like I was like, it's ridiculous. Yes, it's jam packed. It's not perfect, but you know what? It sustained my nostalgia and I'm fine for it. It's fine. Is it going to be a classic? No, but it's good. Good for what it is.
More than fair. Yeah.
Yeah. And I will absolutely be there when they make Beetlejuice.
They better right get there. On it. Keats isn't getting any younger, damn it.
That man will live forever. I don't care. All right. Now, this was one that John actually had recommended to me to see, this next one. And I still have yet, John, to see the original, but I did watch the American remake, and that is Speak No Evil.
Ooh, okay. Well, if you like that one, please see the foreign film. It is much better.
So this was one that I saw the trailer for this one. I forget what movie I saw where it had the trailer for this. It might have been oh man, it might have been Dune. But I saw the trailer for this and I was like, oh, okay, that's kind of creepy and terrifying. Professor X is kind of a murdery guy. Like it's kind of interesting. But it wasn't until John had told me, he's like, dude, you got to check out this movie, Speak No Evil. He's like, they have a remake that's an or Americanized one, and they have the original. And Lauren and I one night, like we were just like as most married couples are, eventually were like, I got nothing to watch on TV, and saw that Speak No Evil was, I think it was on like Amazon. And so I'm like, John had recommended this. It's not the original, but let's watch the remake one. And yeah, man, it kept us on the edge of our seat. Like it literally comes right out of the gate. Like it comes right out of the gate in the tension of terror of this family. It's basically held hostage by these crazy people, and it had some twists and turns that I didn't see coming. But that's the type of movie that I really love. So that one definitely makes my list because it was like balls to the wall roller coaster ride of a thriller.
Okay, check out the 4-in-1.
I know I got to check out the 4-in-1. I know always the 4-in-1 is going to be better. And the 4-in-1, isn't it like Australian?
No, God, what country was it?
I know it's in English.
Yes, it is. Thankfully, so
that's what I'm saying. Like I think it's either New Zealand or Australian.
Let me see here.
You're gonna look it up right now.
It's a Dutch film.
Okay, it's a Dutch film. I don't know geography because I'm American. Sorry. All right, I'm gonna have to check that one out because I was really all for this Americanized remake. All right, next up on my list is the second movie that we ended up seeing in a screener, and that is Driveway Dolls.
This movie, yeah, undeservingly has just gotten ignored.
It really has. It really has.
And there's a famous episode of South Park where Terrence and Philip break up, and Philip ends up doing in Shakespeare, and Terrence is just like doing all of his old routines. And I really think that's what happened to the Coen brothers. Like literally, Joel went and did Macbeth by himself, basically just the exact Shakespeare play. And then there's Ethan Coen doing all of like, hey, remember Big Lebowski? We're gonna have a lot of those type of jokes in here, you know.
Yeah, this very much feels like was it Ethan was doing the Bizarro movies, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, so Ethan's doing the bizarre comedies and Joel's doing the serious stuff. So it's like Ethan's like, yeah, you know what? I don't got the serious chops, so we're just gonna go balls deep into this lesbian crime caper, movie that also has political intrigue in it. And I knew nothing about this film when I saw the trailer for it. I'm like, what the fuck is this? And I had actually seen the trailer a year prior because they had premiered the trailer and then they pushed it back, I think because of the writer's strike. So, it was something where I knew this was coming, but didn't know when we were actually going to get a chance to see it. And then we got invited to the press screener, and that was our first real like isolated press screener where we were told like, hey, you can't like talk about the movie for a month, which was new for us. But I love this film. I think it's an undeserved fun movie that has a lot of that wackiness that the Coen brothers are known for, but just missing a lot of the serious side too. Like if you loved Hudsucker Proxy, but didn't really like all the serious aspects of it, that's Driveway Dolls.
Yeah, it's like Burn After Reading. It's in that vein, you know. But I will say that I'm so glad that The Substance was a big hit for Margaret Qualley because she was in this movie. She's fantastic in it. Nobody saw it. And then there was a movie that came out, Kinds of Kindness, and she's in that, and nobody saw it. So both are great movies, but it completely ignored by the American audiences. So I'm glad that at least The Substance was a big hit for her.
Yeah, definitely. I'd say 2024 was definitely a year for Margaret Qualley. Yeah.
Making good films, just not seen.
Just not seen.
Yeah.
Okay, and speaking of the substance, that is my next pick. I can't say enough about this movie. I mean, we did a whole episode on it. Body horror is a very difficult subgenre of horror to get right. I really believe that. I think that and comedic horror are some of the hardest ones because anyone can throw blood and gore on the screen, but body horror tends to also have other layers of meaning tied to them. And that's the thing that when you see body horror done really well, a la a Scanners or a Video Drone or even The Fly to some degree, it makes you question aspects of your person and even at times society. Like Video Drone is all about how entertainment is turning us into like weirdo slaves.
Yeah.
Like that's the message I get out of that. That merging between the mechanical and organic in a way. Great film. Seriously, amazing film. But the substance does that on a level while also speaking to, the beauty standards that women are held to that are ridiculous, and especially in the entertainment industry. So it literally is holding a mirror to the entertainment industry and saying, look at what you do to women that forces them to augment themselves, and what happens if you had a substance that augmented them to the point where it created a clone.
Yeah.
And I think there's a lot to that. And it's definitely a movie that you should never eat while watching it. Like I've told that to multiple people. I'm like, listen, if you see the substance, please don't eat while watching it. You will throw up. Because there's some really like gut-wrenching scenes in this. But yeah, substance is great.
There's two types of satire. There's subtle and there's smack you in the face. And this movie has a lot to say, and it just goes straight smack to the face.
This movie will smack you in the face with Dennis Quaid's prawn.
his chomping of prawns.
His chomping of prawns. Like I almost was like, I don't know if I could eat seafood at all ever. And then I didn't watch The Substance for like, a minute, and I'm like, oh, I like seafood again. Next up on my list, this is no surprise, this is my number 2 pick. Was Dune Part 2. Love this movie.
I'm glad you put it on there because I'm sure some people were like, what the hell's wrong with John? Dune Part 2 didn't make his list. I very much enjoyed it, but it just didn't make but I'm glad it's here with you.
Dune Part 2. What more can I say? We did a whole episode on it. I never was a giant Dune head, like don't get me wrong, like I like the Lynch version. But I was never like someone who was like collecting all of the books and read all the books. I don't know all that shit. But I loved the first Dune. I thought it was remarkable for a sci-fi film, and done artfully well. And that was something that you don't really see from sci-fi films nowadays. It was done kind of in the vein of, hey, we're going to really tell the story that, people have tried telling and that one person was able to get off the ground, but we're going to do it in a respectful way. So, Dune Part 1 came out in the middle of the pandemic. So this was kind of the follow-up to it, and it answered a lot of the questions. And I think because that was one of the things that a lot of people had problems with Dune Part 1 was like, well, there's no action in this. It's like, well, there's this thing called world building, and you have to build that first to get to the action. And Dune Part 2, for me at least, delivers on that. And it also delivers on the subtext of the concept of saviors and the concept of this person can save you from tyranny and all sorts of things, and how you really shouldn't do that, because a lot of people don't get that Paul Atreides is not the good guy in this movie. He's the bad guy.
Right.
Because he's going to lead to a, intergalactic holocaust. That happens in the next part. So it's like everyone's like, oh yeah, root for Paul Atreides. Like, you're not supposed to root for him. Like, he's manipulating people to his own ends. Okay.
Don't root for Chalamet.
Timmy
Chalamet.
But this was a movie that, I saw it in the theaters, and I mentioned this before on that episode of Dune. I immediately was like, I need to go back and see this in the theaters. And when I didn't get a chance to see it in the theaters, but I saw it in streaming, and I watched it at least 2 additional times once I got it to streaming, because I was like, it's that good. But yeah, Dune Part 2. What can I say? And of course, my number one. It's your favorite Count and mine, Nosferatu.
Oh, I thought you were going to say the Count from Sesame Street.
The Count. No, Nosferatu. I love this movie. I love that it has reestablished vampires as being zombie, bloodthirsty, and horny monsters.
Oh, yeah. Vampires can't stop fucking. That's all.
Oh, my God. Oh, my God. Like, I love the memes that have come out of, you must bounce on it. Have you seen that one?
No, but I'm sure.
Oh my God, there is a whole.
I'm sure it's coming now. Yeah.
There is a whole TikTok series of videos of people dressed up like Count Orlok with the mustache saying, "You must bounce on it," and it's hilarious. So I love the memes. I love that there's now a new appreciation for movies like Bram Stoker's Dracula from '92, because that's one of my all-time favorite Dracula films. So like, Robert Eggers' take on this has done so much for vampire fans that I've seen in a long time. Like, the last time was maybe like Twilight, but I look at that as like a dark day for true fans of vampires.
Yeah.
That's all I got. That's all my list. I don't have any honorable mentions. I didn't see nearly as many movies as John did, obviously, because I have kids. But yeah, 2024 was kind of a mixed bag, but all around good.
We'll see what 2025 has in store for us.
I don't know about that. I mean, I don't know any movies coming out that are like, oh yes, this is going to be the big movie for this year.
At this time, though, last year, I didn't know about The Brutalist. I didn't know about Anora. I didn't know, like, a lot of these movies that ended up being in my top, not just 10, but top 5. Like, I didn't even know what they were until many, many months into the year.
True. I'm just thinking of terms of like, we are going to get to a point where the writer's strike is going to affect the movies that start coming out, and I have a feeling that 2025 is going to be the first part of that, where we are going to see kind of either rushed films or that the trickle of those movies kind of start to like really taper out. So that's kind of my thought process, because eventually we're going to get to that point, and it's either going to be 2025 or 2026. My money is on 25.
Well, that's assuming that the new powers that be even let movies come out anymore.
Yeah, because they might, say naughty things about them. And let's be honest here, they have the emotional maturity of a rodent. So,
of a couch fucker.
A couch fucker.
Yeah.
Yes. A couch fucker and an orange turd. We're not going to get into that. That's going to get into that. Good talk, John. Good talk. Where can they find you at on the internet?
You can find me over at Instagram and Facebook for now. We'll see with how much Zuckerberg is just a giant douchebag, if I'm going to be sticking around there. And you could most predominantly find me over at YouTube at Jada's Video Nasties. I dropped an episode on Woody Allen's Manhattan, where he kind of told us that he was a pervert, in the 70s, and we all just kind of ignored him. And right now I'm editing my interview with Michael Uslan, who is the producer of every Batman movie that ever was outside of the 66 one.
Well, I'm looking forward to that one.
Yeah.
I still have to check out your Woody Allen one because I know you probably had fun making that and made it very disgusting. Because I know
Hey.
you too damn well.
Hey, if he gives you the ammunition, you go ahead and fire it.
Yeah. Well, of course, if you've loved this episode, please do me a favor and share this out with your friends. If there are movies down the line you were like, hey, yeah, I liked what Brian and John said about that movie. Let us know. Comment down in the comments there. Share it with your friends. That stuff really does help us out. On top of that, if you want to follow the podcast in your favorite podcast app, do me a favor. Go to cinemapsychoshow.com/follow. It's going to have all of our links there to where we're at on all the podcast platforms. And you can click one button, and boom, you'll be able to subscribe to us and follow us right then and there. And of course, if you are watching us here on YouTube, hey, thank you so much for doing that. While you're here, do me a favor. Right there down at the bottom there's a little button there that just popped up. Do me a favor, hit that like button, hit that follow button, and hit that bell, because those things really do help us out. It tells the magical algorithm in YouTube land that our podcast is awesome and that it should be shown to more people. So if you've watched us a couple times and you're like, yeah, I'm not going to hit that bell, not going to subscribe, you're not really helping us out. So please do that. That really does help us out. With that said, we will see you next time.
Here's to 2025, for better or worse.